Hello and welcome to this webinar entitled Virtual Data Center for Partners. My name is Martin Saunders, I'm the Product Director for Claranet UK, and I'm going to spend the next half an hour or so giving you a very quick overview of cloud and virtual data center, but primarily giving you a demonstration of VDC working and how VDC is very relevant for Claranet's business partners. So, to start off with, a few assumptions. Firstly, I'm going to assume that you know who Claranet are. If you don't know who Claranet are and we're a new organisation to you, then please go to our website. That's easier than me explaining in detail and using your precious time for this webinar to do that. I'm also going to assume that you are aware of cloud or cloudiness. To be honest, I think most people in the industry are aware of what cloud is about. I'll give you a few quick definitions, but I am assuming that you have a fairly good view of that, and so therefore I'm going to give this a fairly low cloud buzzword rating. If you've seen presentations from many technology companies over the last couple of years, then as I'm sure you're aware, they'll be full of cloud buzzwords. The other side of things is that this is quite a practical demonstration. I'm going to do my best to try and explain the technical piece as we go, but I am assuming that you have an interest, but you aren't necessarily entirely technical. And so I'm going to give this a slightly higher technical rating. This isn't an outright techie presentation, but we will delve into a few technical pieces. So, from a definition point of view, infrastructure as a service and cloud. So firstly, what is IaaS, infrastructure as a service, all about? Well, infrastructure as a service is basically the ability of an organisation to consume computing resource on a recurring basis from a third party. So, as part of that definition, infrastructure as a service generally needs to be based in a third-party data center, and it will include the ability to consume memory, RAM, processing units, CPU, storage, hard disk space as some people call it, networking, the ability to network to this thing, the ability to have it firewalled and protected from a network security point of view, and the ability to be able to load balance, to be able to spread the load across many machines. This is generally then controlled with a hypervisor. So the hypervisor is a piece of software that sits on top of this hardware, and it virtualizes it. It makes it possible to use via many operating systems. But the operating system, as coloured grey here, is generally looked after by someone else. In the strictest sense of infrastructure as a service, the management piece of infrastructure as a service goes up to the hypervisor, and beyond the hypervisor, the operating system, so in this example Windows or Linux, would generally be looked after by the organisation consuming it. You consume infrastructure as a service on a recurring basis, so there should be typically very little or no setup charges to get infrastructure as a service going, and there should be a service level agreement which defines exactly what service you are getting. Now, recently there has been the term cloud used a lot, and there is an awful lot of cloud washing going on in particular in the service provider industry that Claranet operates in. And for something really to be cloud, this is the 451 group tier 1 definitions of cloud. For something to be truly cloud, it needs to be on demand and self-service, so you access it via a portal. You need to be able to get access to it anywhere, so it needs to be connected to a network, either via the public internet or maybe via a private network. There needs to be resource pooling, which means that the service provider has invested up front the resource for a customer to use, so you're not buying dedicated resource. There's already pre-bought and pre-readied resource ready for you to use. The combination of the resource pooling and the on-demand self-service gives you rapid elasticity. You can turn it up and you can turn it down. And then finally, metered billing, the ability to be able to consume this on maybe an hourly or a daily basis and only pay for the resources that you use. So a very, very quick rundown of what infrastructure as a service is about and what cloud is about. So moving on to Claranet. Claranet about 3 years ago decided that it needed to be an important player in the cloud and infrastructure as a service market. But at that time, it was very clear to us already that some of the big juggernauts of the industry, people like Amazon and Rackspace, are also getting into this marketplace, and they are going to dominate the public cloud side of the cloud industry. And Claranet had to think long and hard about what part we play. And what became very clear is that public clouds are great. Public clouds are very good for rolling out mass-scale web applications in a very rapid, quick way. But what public clouds don't give you is a lot of certainty about the service level that you're going to get. You don't necessarily know where your data is. It's not necessarily very easy to interconnect into these things. These things are very much designed to be web-based hosting platforms. And Claranet realised that there is very much a hole in the marketplace for an organisation like us to go in with a much more high-grade enterprise quality cloud platform, which can be used for much more than just hosting websites. It can be used for hosting internal IT applications. And this is where we really feel there's such a great opportunity for the partner market as well, because we see businesses out there needing a lot of help and assistance in their cloud strategy and how they may migrate out to the cloud. And so we also wanted to make sure that we could help our partners with that as well. So when we came up with a cloud platform, we wanted it to have four main attributes. So the first one was around the enterprise grade nature of this platform. The Claranet Cloud and Virtual Data Center service is based on high quality equipment that you will know and trust. It's based on Dell Compute, NetApp storage, VMware from the hypervisor point of view, and Cisco and Force 10 networking. And we've wrapped it up in a service level agreement, which is very plain speaking. It offers a high availability guarantee of 99.95% a month, which equates to about 14 minutes of allowable downtime a month. So it's a very consistent experience. We also don't overbook the platform. When we sell you resource, we sell you the resource that you will get. So there's the kind of enterprise grade consistency there as well. Moving on from that, though, it also needs to be well integrated with other services, and in particular with the network. As if you may already be a partner of Claranet already, and if you are, you'll be aware that Claranet has a long history of providing high quality network services. So we really wanted this cloud platform to be properly integrated with the network from the start, and that's exactly what we've done. The Claranet Cloud Platform can be instantly integrated with a Claranet private network, an MPLS network, giving you direct access into your computing resource without needing to go out via the public internet and come back again. The next attribute we wanted to have was local. Claranet is present in 6 countries in Europe, and the way the company is set up is that each country very much has its own resource in terms of sales resource and support resource, and finance and billing resource, which means that we can, for a customer in the UK, we bill in pounds. Our support teams are English speaking, based in the UK. You contract with us under UK contract law. We're very much a UK company for UK businesses. But in France, equally, we have a French operation. We can bill in euros, we can support in French, and we bill under French contract law. So each country that we have this available in, we're able to operate locally, but for a UK customer we're also able to offer the resources in the other countries as well, so you can commit to resource in the UK, France, Germany and Netherlands today, and I'll go into a little bit more about that in a second. Finally, the last piece is then the open nature of the platform. We felt it was very important for our customers and partners to know that they can migrate easily into this platform, but also to be able to migrate out again afterwards if they need to, and that was a key aspect of this service that we wanted to make sure that we could satisfy. So those 4 aspects of the service, enterprise, integrated, local and open, we feel are what makes us different to the other public cloud platforms out there, and we feel that we very much complement the markets rather than compete against people like Rackspace and Amazon with the service that they've come up with. So VDC actually isn't a new service. This is something that we've had running since November 2011, and in fact actually our roots as a cloud organization and particularly as an organization with experience of virtualization goes back long before 2011. Our first virtualized platform we launched in late 2007. So we're very experienced with this, but in particular, this product itself, Virtual Data Center, was launched in the UK in 2011. And very soon after that we got our first major customer, Channel 5, which I'll touch on a little bit in a second. We then rolled out VDC into France, and that happened in March of 2012. And we did the same for our German operation into Frankfurt in May 2012. In the summer of 2012 we were then very fortunate to get a number of awards. We got 3 awards in the UK, and we also got an award in Netherlands, award in France, and an award in Germany as well. And all these awards all recognised VDC in terms of its ease of use and how it's very much carved out its own niche in the cloud market space. Then later on we then also launched into Netherlands, so we have a node in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and that opened in November 2012. And finally, most recently, we've recently added a new feature to VDC, which is backup, the ability to have machines automatically backed up on a daily basis, and we did that in partnership with Commvault, and that launched last month, February 2013. Coming in the very near future, we'll have nodes opening in Spain and Portugal, and due to the success of the first UK node, we're also planning to open up a second UK node in a separate geographic data center to give the option of 2 different data centers in the UK, and we'll have more news on that hopefully towards June-July timeframe. So hopefully you'll see from this that VDC is actually quite a well-established service now, and we've got a very large number of customers running on this. So we number in terms of the thousands in virtual machines. We've got more than 4 terabytes of RAM available in the UK alone, more than 8 terabytes across the group. We've got more than 250 terabytes of available storage in the platform. It is a large platform, and it is growing quickly, but the capacity is being well managed to ensure that we're able to keep the service levels consistent. So a few quick touches on use cases, and I'll touch a bit more on the one that we're going to focus on today. So scalable web hosting. So I mentioned about Channel 5 earlier. So Channel 5 is one of our key case study customers for Virtual Data Center. What we host on VDC for Channel 5 is the Big Brother site. Now, Big Brother is, as you may or may not know, is a show that comes on a few times a year. And has very high peaks and troughs of traffic utilization. Once a week or so they evict people out of the Big Brother house, and every time they evict somebody the traffic through the website goes sky high, and then for the rest of the week it can be relatively quiet unless something exciting happens, by which point it then peaks and it goes down again. So it didn't make sense to have a massive platform sitting there which 95% of the time was sitting there largely unused. So in this case, Virtual Data Center was a perfect platform for Claranet and Channel 5 to host the Big Brother site on, and it gives them the ability to scale up and scale down. We have other customers using VDC for business continuity, so we have some customers using it as a simple backup platform. We have other customers using it as a true disaster recovery, business continuity platform to roll machines onto if their primary data center goes down. We have some customers using VDC for test and dev, either for test and development of applications they've written themselves, or maybe from an internal IT point of view, rolling out, for example, Windows Server 2012 and understanding how Server 2012 works. You might not want to do that on its own dedicated equipment. You can do it in something like VDC, turn it up, learn how it uses and how it works, and when you finish, turn it back down again. We have customers using VDC as a software as a service enablement platform. So where perhaps their software isn't quite fully enabled for a true cloud environment. VDC gives the certainty around availability and performance that their software may need, particularly if it needs to be in a resilient environment. So for some companies, VDC is a very useful platform to shortcut their business model to become a software as a service and organization. We have many companies using VDC as a basic secure network breakout, so as a gateway point between a private network and the public internet. You can host a firewall in VDC, and you can use VDC as a breakout point for an MPLS network, and that's a good simple way of doing that. But the one we want to focus on today is around IP optimization, and in particular the ability to be able to pick up a virtual machine and to be able to migrate it from an internal IT environment into VDC, and to then be able to look after it once it's in VDC. And this is something that we're seeing done a lot, in particular by partners at the moment, because partners can utilize the VDC platform and focus on the thing that they're really good at, which is service for their customers and the ability to understand what applications they're using in their IT environment, and to then might help the migration and the ongoing running of those machines within VDC. So at this point I'm going to switch over to the demonstration. So to start off with the demonstration, I'm going to quickly show what I'm going to be migrating. So this is a turnkey Linux server which I have running on my laptop at the moment using Oracle VirtualBox. So this is the machine running at the moment. I can go in and I can do things. I can change the networking, I can shut down, and I can reboot. This has a web interface which I can show as well, but unfortunately I don't really have a lot of time in this webinar to go into detail here. But basically you can see this is a running machine, but it's running within my laptop as it currently stands. So what I'll do is I'll shut this down. So I'll shut down the appliance so I can enable the migration. So this will shut down. That's now shut down. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go into my FTP client, which I use FileZilla for, and I want to FTP up my virtual machine. So this is the virtual machine file. So it's 1.2 gigabytes of data, and the format it sits in is a virtual machine disk format, which is a VMware VMDK. So VMDKs are the format that Claranet can accept as a migration into the VDC platform. So that's that virtual machine sitting there. So what I'll do is I'll log in to my virtual data center FTP section, which I've now done, and I'll get that uploading. So it'll take a couple of minutes to do. I'm rather privileged to have quite a lot of bandwidth where I'm sitting at the moment, so that 1.2 gig will take about a couple of minutes to upload. So while that's doing, I'll then log into the virtual data center. So this is the virtual data center environment. This is the live portal, the web page that gives access to your resources. So the first thing that I will do is I will just quickly explain this first screen. So this is a summary screen showing me the resource I have available. It shows me what virtual data centers I have, and it will show me an event log of what's been going on. But to first off explain, let me just quickly explain this enterprise resource. So I have 20 virtual CPUs of resource available to me. I have 500 gigabytes of local storage, so this is operating system storage, or the equivalent of a C drive in Windows. I then have 10 gigabytes of RAM. I have just slightly over 1,000 gig or 1 terabyte of external storage. So this is slightly different storage. This is storage that's the equivalent of, say, plugging in an external storage array, a storage area network into your virtual machine. But the great thing about external storage is you can unplug it from one machine and you can plug it into another. I have the ability to create 10 VLANs, virtual local area networks, and I can have 3 public IP addresses. I have then 3 virtual data centers. I have one in the UK, one in Germany, and one in France. Now, as a partner organisation, we wouldn't limit you to have a single virtual data centre in one country. This is where you can have multiple virtual data centres for each of your customers. So you, from one portal, one view, can see each customer's virtual data centre, and you can then see what you then manage for that customer within their virtual data centre. So let me just quickly check and see how that upload's done. So that's done, nice and quick. So I'll go back to the portal, and I'll start to look to build out my my environment. So the first thing I'll just quickly jump into is I'll go to the app library. So this is where my virtual machine would have been uploaded to. Excuse me. These are the standard images that Claranet provide. So Ubuntu, Viata, Windows images, Red Hat, and so on and so forth. It's worth mentioning at this point that we supply Windows images because we've also fully licensed the platform for Windows. So either using our Windows images or importing up a Windows image that currently resides on a customer's environment or in your own environment, the platform is fully licensed for all versions of Windows, so you don't need to worry about the Windows licensing. So if I click refresh, a new little icon should appear. Here we are. So this is the image that I've uploaded. Now at the moment it doesn't have a particularly friendly name, that's an auto-generated name, but you can see that this is my uploaded image, my turnkey domain controller image. So if I call this turnkey domain controller, and at the moment I'm allocating 1 CPU and 2 gig of RAM to that machine. That'll be fine. So there you go, so that's renamed it, turnkey domain controller, and that's now sitting there waiting to be used. So I'll go in and I'll start building my virtual machine. So for this I go into the virtual data center tab, and I'll select the virtual data center I want to use, which is my UK one. And the first thing, before I start to go and build my virtual machines, I need to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So the first thing I need to do is to look on the network side. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, VDC gives a lot of flexibility around the networking and the integration of the networking. So by standard I have a default VLAN that's created, but I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one which I'm going to call domain controller. And I'm going to give this network a different IP address. I'm going to give it something arbitrary, 10.13.2.0, and I want the default to be 10.13.2.1. And I'll create that. So that creates that VLAN for me, and that I can now use that VLAN in the configuration of my machines. I need to also go off and get a public IP address. So if I go and allocate myself a new public IP address, I'll go and pick again an arbitrary IP address out of the pool that we provide. So let's try 192.157.13.40. There we go. So what I've done here is I've gone to get a public IP address, and I've allocated myself a private VLAN range out of an IP address range that I'm happy it fits within my IP addressing scheme. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to create an external volume. So this is an additional data volume. Now this is where this demonstration is a little bit odd, because you typically wouldn't tend to need to give a domain controller an awful lot of storage, but let's just, for argument's sake, let's do that. Let's create a 128 gig additional storage array, and I'll add that in as well. So that creates that. So I've created my networks and I've created an additional storage volume. So the next thing I will do is I will go in and I'll create my virtual appliance. So think of a virtual appliance like a virtual rack. It's a virtual rack that contains virtual machines. So if I call this one again domain controller, and I'm sticking it within my UK virtual data center, this is the point where I then go and I start to configure my machine. So this is a drag and drop interface. So what I will do is I will first off I will drag in a firewall, because I need to have some way of getting out to the public internet. So I will pull in a pfSense firewall, and what I'll also do is I'll pull in my turnkey domain controller. I save that, and I'll then start off by adding in some configuration. So the first piece of configuration I want to add in is the firewall. So I will give it a remote access password so I can get in. And when I get in through that remote access interface, I need to set a key map, so I'll set it as a UK key map to make it nice and friendly. I don't need to increase the CPU or the RAM allocation on this machine, but I could if I wanted to. I'll just quickly save that, and then I'll go into the network side. So by default, this machine has been given a IP address out of the default network. I don't want it to be on there, so I'll take that off, and I'll add in a new IP address. So the first one I'll add in is that public IP. So the firewall has a public IP address. I'll add in that, and what I'll also add in is a interface onto the domain controller network, and I'll stick it onto the default network. That's what that little symbol there means, and I'll add that in there. So I have my public IP address and I have my internal private IP address, and the last thing I will do is I'll add a default gateway to that machine, and the default gateway is on the public internet side, so the firewall can get out to the public internet. I will save that. It will tell me that my gateway has changed. Yes, thank you very much. And that is that machine configured and ready to go. So I'll do one last quick save to make sure I changed anything, and I will close that. I will then also do the same for the domain controller. So again, I will add in a remote access password, and I will change the key map. I don't need to again change the amount of resource available with this machine, but I could if I wanted to. But again, on the network side of things, I want to take it off that default LAN because I don't want it on there, and I'll add it into my new network, and I'll give it the .2 address. So that's added in, and I'll change the default gateway. So I'll save that, and it will again tell me that the default gateway has changed. Finally, I will add in this additional disk. So this is my domain controller disk that I added in. I will change it from being an available volume to an attached volume, which means it's attached to the machine. When I click save on that, yes, I do want to save that configuration. That's now attached that in. So that means this machine has got a secondary drive as well as its primary drive. So that's all done. A very, very quick run through of this. So now those machines are configured, I now need to deploy them. So if I click deploy virtual appliance, that then goes off. It will then start to copy these machine images onto the live machine environment. It will configure them and it will start them up. So for a couple of machines like this typically takes a few minutes to do. So while that's doing, I'll then go in and I'll touch on a few more features of VDC. So I'll quickly touch into the Appliance Library. So I was in here before. This is where we also give customers the ability to download images. So I mentioned about migration in. So this image here, which is the one that I've migrated in. But if I want to then migrate it back down again afterwards, I can click this download symbol. I start to put in my credentials to be able to do that. And then that gives me the same file that I can then download again, and I download it via a browser. I won't do that for the moment. What we also have in this section is the ability to take a snapshot and to be able to download that snapshot. So snapshots are very useful, where, say for argument's sake, that you've started the machine and you've configured it and you've put the software on it that you want to use, and you then decided that's my image that I want to use. You can then create an instance, create a snapshot. And what that snapshot then allows you to do is you can then redeploy based on that snapshot, so you're not having to constantly create the same information on additional machines as you're rolling your machines out. So this is great again if you're doing machine rollouts for your customers. It may be that you have a particular way that you like to build machines, and once you've created an instance and a snapshot, it will also appear in here as an icon, and you can then also download from that snapshot if you want to as well. Moving on, we then have the user pane. So this isn't a very exciting screen in my account because I just have a single user, but we can add additional users in. So if you have multiple people within your organization that you want to have access to this, and maybe you have a team of engineers that you want to have access, then you can add in additional engineers, you contact Claranet and we'll add that in for you. We have the event log. So the event log provides information on what's going on and what is happening. So at the moment I've got lots of nice simple information ones, but if I do something that I shouldn't do, and this is an example where I tried to add in a machine and I didn't have enough available resource, it will say workload, hard limit exceeded, not enough resources on the enterprise to do that. So it becomes up with a clear error message if you try and add in too much resource than has been allocated to you. Finally, I'll touch on the documentation side of things. So we've worked very hard to try and make Virtual Data Center a self-service offering, and we've done this by creating lots of documentation. So we've created videos on how to roll out virtual machines, which is basically what I'm doing here for you now, and we've created lots of documentation on, for example, migrating in and out. So this is a section that will explain what type of images that we currently support. So we will support a virtual machine VMDK monolithic sparse images, and we're working on compressed and VDI images at the moment. And then there's an explanation down the documentation of how to import in machines. At this stage it's worth making note that if you have a physical server that you're wanting to import in, then typically the way you would tend to do that is that you would use something like the VMware Converter tool. So if I click on here, this takes you to the VMware Converter page. So this is a free tool that VMware allow you to download, and it's a piece of software that goes onto the physical server, and what it'll do is it will basically build a virtual machine image from that physical server and will create for you a VMDK file. What you can then do is you can then upload that VMDK file into VDC and migrate all of your servers and your data into VDC, basically doing what I'm doing here. And then the final piece is the support piece. So this is a simple tab that just explains how to get support from Claranet. So the support for VDC is 24/7, and you can either phone us up, or you can put in a ticket into our support team, and our support team will endeavour to help you. Okay, so let's go back and have a look at our virtual data center and see if we're deployed. So the green light, that's good news. Green light is on, which means everything is running. And here are our two virtual machines again, our pfSense firewall and our turnkey domain controller. So green light means it's turned on. So the pfSense firewall is up and running. So let's just prove that. So we'll go to 195.157.13.40. 13.40, and I have to remember this is HTTPS. Now it will give me a error because it's not got an SSL cert, but that's fine. And here we are. This is the administration interface of the firewall. If I can remember the password, excuse me. There we go. So this is where I can then go in and I can then start assigning interfaces, and you can see this is the IP address of my my WAN and of my LAN side as well. But to also prove that the turnkey machine is going, I'll also use the out of band interface. So this is directly through the hypervisor, effectively giving me a keyboard video mouse view. So this is the one of the pfSense firewall to show that that's running. And if I then select the turnkey domain controller, I will do the same for this as well. Here we go, and this is the same view that I had on my machine running in VirtualBox, but you can see now that the IP address is now 10.14.2.2, which I allocated through the configuration, and I can continue on and configure this machine from here. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into great detail on that one. So, going back to the presentation, there's one last piece that we need to quickly touch on, which is the pricing model. So, when I was showing you the screen earlier, I was showing you the amount of available resource I have on the portal. That's what we call a resource limit, and that resource limit is based on a combination of what we bill you based on a commit basis, and what we bill on or what we have available on a burst point of view. So on a commit basis, what we can do is we can say, here is a certain amount of resource, 10 gig of RAM, 100 gig of CPU, 100 CPUs, 200 gig of storage perhaps, and if you commit to it over a certain period of time, we will give you a great rate for that commitment. But alternatively, what we can offer is a burst model, which we can charge per hour for each unit of resource that you use. So you either can be burst only, where you pay per hour. You can be commit only, where you know you get a consistent bill in, month out. Or you can be commit plus burst. And the amount of resource that is allocated on a commit and on a burst basis then becomes the available limit in the portal. And those units of resources I touched on earlier are RAM for memory, CPU for processing, storage, both local and remote storage, they're charged at the same rate, virtual local area networks, VLANs, and public IP addresses. Note that we do not charge for bandwidth. Bandwidth is included within the resource, and so we're quite different to a lot of public cloud service providers out there who bill per unit of bandwidth consumed. We do not bill for bandwidth, we bill for public IPs and for VLANs. Then from an individual customer point of view, you will then get individual bills for each customer VDC that you have created. So if you recall earlier, I talked about in the VDC portal you can see individual customer virtual data centers and their machines within that. We can itemize the bills that we provide you to provide information on how much resource you have committed and you are bursting on each individual customer, which that then allows you to in turn provide that information either to your customer or to bill that information to your customer. And as I mentioned earlier, the commit is based on a discount model based on the term and the size of the commitment. So you can start on burst only and start using your resource on a per hourly basis, but as soon as you understand what your consistent usage model is like, you can then commit to an amount of resource which will give you a discount for that commitment. And the commitments can be small and start from as little as a 3-month recurring commitment, but obviously the longer you commit, the better rate we will give you. So hopefully you've got a good idea of a virtual data center and how it sits within the cloud market space. You understand a bit about its enterprise grade nature, so it's highly available, highly resilient, and built in a way that typically you might build a platform yourself if you had the size and scale of Claranet. You understand about how it's integrated in with the network, and how you can have control over the network using the portal. You understand about where this thing is based. It's UK, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal and Netherlands by the end of summer. And you've also seen firsthand the open nature of the platform, how it's possible to migrate in and migrate out again afterwards. So at this stage I will then open up the floor to questions.
That's great. Thank you very much, Martin. That was a really interesting presentation, and I hope everybody on the line has found it as equally interesting. By way of introduction, my name is Richard Moore. I'm the head of marketing here at Claranet, and in the room here with me, I've got Martin Saunders, who's just given that presentation, who's our product director. I've also got Randall, who's our head of channel. And I'll be chairing the next 10 minutes or so of Q&A. So I've got a couple of good questions here. The first question is from a Stefan Smith from a company called Kelcom. And he says, reselling VDC to our clients, what percentage margin can we expect to make in the middle? So Martin, what are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting question, actually, and I suppose it very much depends on exactly what you're using VDC for, and basically what value you're building on top of it. So, if you consider this as an infrastructure as a service offering, so the hypervisor is managed by Claranet, but then all of the operating system and beyond will be managed by the partner. Now, we typically tend to find in those kind of markets, it's a competitive market, but it's a good market for making some healthy margins in. So, if you're, say, for argument's sake, offering a managed exchange service based on VDC, and you're dealing with the migrations and the ongoing management and services, then a 50% margin for a partner is not uncommon. If you're simply reselling, so effectively handing the customer to Claranet, then obviously the margins will be somewhat tighter. What also obviously depends is what level of commitment you're able to make to the resource, because as I said earlier in the presentation, if you're able to commit to resource over a longer period of time, and the more resource you're able to commit to, we're able to make our pricing more and more keen based on that. So the short answer is it depends, but say some of our partners are making some pretty healthy margins on top of the VDC service. And it also gives the partner the opportunity to focus on the thing that they're good at, which is looking after their customers and introducing other services that they may also focus on. It takes away the pain of that infrastructure, which may or may not be what the partner's interested in doing.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that very full and clear answer, Martin. I must say too, we've got one more question, so if anybody on the line wants to take this chance to ask any more questions, please do so now before we wrap up this webinar. So this second question is from Mr. Chris Wilpert from Oxford Technology Solutions, and he's asking, how would we integrate hardware-based firewalls into the virtual data center solution? So what are your thoughts on that, Martin?
So hardware-based firewalls are pretty easy to integrate into VDC. So everything that I was showing in a demonstration was based on virtual machines, but the integration part of VDC is a very important part of how we've designed the service, and integrating it in cleanly with a private network, a layer 3 private network, is possible and easy out of the box. And we can also do what we call layer 2 integrations, which is where maybe for argument's sake that a partner has some co-location space within our data center and hosts some firewalls or other equipment in there. And what we do is we plug in the physical boxes into VDC using what we call as a layer 2 interconnect, basically, which in its simplest terms is a cable or a couple of cables that run in between the co-location suite in the same data center and the VDC environment in that data center. And then the physical firewalls or the other equipment can communicate backwards and forwards with the virtual machines in VDC, sitting on the same local area network segment. So that is all pretty easy to do. And in particular, from a partner point of view, as I say, you don't necessarily have to take a managed firewall service from Claranet. I'd obviously would love you to. If you would rather do that firewall management yourself, then you can take co-location and host that firewall and do that firewall management yourself. And indeed, it doesn't have to be just firewalls. It could be load balancers, it could be intrusion detection equipment, or indeed physical servers that you may bring in yourself, or you may integrate with other physical servers that Claranet provides. So again, it all falls down to that layer 2 and layer 3 integration that we've designed the service to do.
Fabulous. We have another couple of questions come in, actually. The questions are starting to come in thick and fast. So the next question to come in is from a Mr. Kevin Fisher. He's head of IT services at ITIM Limited. And he says, as a Star customer, will this virtual data center model replace Star's V platform? And so maybe it's actually two questions in one. So if I just asked that question on its own, so I'll just repeat it for Martin. As a Star customer, will this virtual data center model replace Star's V platform? Oh.
There's a quick answer to that one, which is no. So V platform and VDC are subtly different services. So just for the people out there who aren't existing Star customers, V platform is a infrastructure as a service offering as well. But the difference between V platform and VDC is V platform, in essence, builds for the customer an entirely dedicated environment. And the customer or partner then interface in directly in with VMware vCenter to control that platform. The advantages of something like vPlatform is that basically you have complete control over the resources, and you know exactly what you have available because you've in essence committed to that. You have that dedicated to you. The slight downside of vPlatform is it has a very high starting point. In essence, you're buying a whole bunch of dedicated equipment from day one. So what we're likely to do is we're likely to try and merge the two products to try and give the flexibility of VDC in terms of the portal and the ability to use the multi-tenanted resources, but also add in the dedicated resources of vPlatform and have the two working side by side. But the quick answer is that no, we're not going to turn off vPlatform with VDC. They are two subtly different services targeted at subtly different customer bases.
Fabulous. I will just follow that up with the second part of Kevin's question, and he says, as a Microsoft Gold partner, will we be able to use our Microsoft benefit licenses? For example, MSDN subscriptions for test dev VMs, demo licenses for sale demo VMs. So I hope I've given that question justice. So I'll just hand that over to you, Martin, to answer that.
So as a Gold partner, yes, you will be able to use licensing, but what I would say is the licensing that you will need to use is under the Microsoft Service Provider License Agreement. My understanding of the Microsoft Developer Network licenses that you get as a Gold partner is that that's fine to use for internal testing, but you can't support obviously any customer environments using that licensing. And my understanding, but I think I'd like to go away and double check this and perhaps come back to you slightly later on, my understanding is that those MSDN licenses also can't be legally used within a third party's multi-tenant platform. That's what I understand is the absolute line of the law from Microsoft. But if you were to consume and use your own SPLA licensing, then that's absolutely fine. As I said earlier in the presentation, we license the operating system, so we've used Microsoft Data Center Edition to completely license all of the physical servers, so you can run as many Windows servers as you like, and that's included within the price of the resources on the platform. That's actually quite unique. Relatively few people, service providers in the industry, do that. If you look around, you'll find most people tend to charge extra for Windows images and Windows licenses. So we've included it because we know that Windows is going to be a key operating system for this platform. But then beyond that, so if you're looking at things like remote desktop services or Exchange or SharePoint or SQL, then you can use your own SPLA licensing and your own SPLA agreement to roll that software out. And as long as you report it, then everything should be fine.
Okay, fabulous. So the next question is from David Scott, Solutions Consultant Manager at NTT, and he says, what orchestration capability is there for scheduling the consumption of resources? Or alternatively, what APIs are available to use external systems? I hope that question makes sense, Martin. I'll hand that over.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to have competitors on a webinar. Thank you for that question. So yes, VDC does have an API. and customers can use the API to build resources. That API at the moment is quite closed, but we do have some customers using it, and we're looking to open up the availability of that API further and further over the next few months. But the short answer on the API is yes, we have an API that customers can use, and they can schedule resources with that API. We're also looking to develop other scheduling and resource-driven systems to automate the increasing of resource over the next few months. But again, we have systems that we use internally because this basic platform is what Claranet uses for a lot of its very highly managed hosting services as well. And so we have platforms that we use to do that today for ourselves, and we're looking to make those more widely available to our customers for this infrastructure as a service model over the next few months.
Now, okay, just one last question now. So if you haven't submitted your question by now, you have literally seconds to do so. This question is from Mr. Tony Dickey, Service Provider Account Director at Avnet, and he asks, can you white label your virtual data center product?
The quick answer to that is no, we can't do that at the moment. We have actually been working with a few organisations to try and look at a more kind of wholesale model of VDC. And we do have some capabilities in that area, but as it stands today, unfortunately, we can't offer a readily available white label version of VDC. We have had, as I say, we've had a few people interested in it, but actually the vast majority of our partner community who are using VDC today are either consuming it themselves, and so their end customers aren't logging onto the portal and therefore don't see the Claranet logo, and so there's no need necessarily to hide the Claranet logo in that regard. Or the other types of partners that we have are people who are actually quite happy for their end customers to see and know that Claranet is involved in the building of this platform. Obviously, it depends very much on what the partner organisation is doing, but I think it's we're very proud to say that we've got a lot of credibility when it comes to the running of these kind of platforms, and a lot of our partners like to use that credibility, but then build on top of that services that they run and add a lot of value themselves. But if that's something that you're interested in, then I think the best thing I can suggest is we'll catch up offline, and we can talk a little bit more about what options we do have in regards to that.
Martin. Okay, that's brilliant. Excuse my pauses. I'm flicking between browsers here to make sure I capture all of the questions. I'm reading this question. So Sally Reed, Channel Director at Whiptail, she asks, do you offer a virtual desktop service? And if not, when do you plan to? So that's the final and last question. I'd like to. That's another Martin question. So Martin, what are your thoughts on that?
So a quick answer to that one is yes, we do. This is actually something that the Star business that Claranet acquired recently has specialised in. So we've got now through the Star acquisition, we've got a lot of Citrix experience, and in particular the Zen app side of Citrix. So just to briefly explain, what we're doing with virtual desktop at the moment is it has become a very useful platform, in particular for partners who want to do a variety of different things, but in particular who want to software as service enable their software. So we have a number of partners at the moment who are using virtual desktop to provide a desktop environment to their end customers, and are installing their software that they have written onto that desktop environment, and in essence making it a software as a service model. That works well for some partners, partially because perhaps They're still in the process of developing their software to become fully web enabled, which is typically what most people do with software as a service. But it also might be that the type of software that they're supplying really needs the more rich desktop environment to provide everything that the customer needs. Yes, the short answer is yes, we do. We base our technology on Microsoft and Citrix, and if you're interested, we can catch up on you about that afterwards.
That's great. Thank you very much, Martin. So I think it's been great. We've had loads of interesting questions coming in, but that's the last one. So that's really it from myself, Martin, and Randall here in the room with me. For more information, thank you very much for everyone attending this Claranet presentation. Hope everyone found it as engaging and informative as we hope you do. For more information, please contact your account manager if you're already working with Claranet or Star, or go to our website and submit an inquiry. We will also be sending you a follow-up email with details of our partner breakfast briefing, which will be held on the 25th of April. Further details for getting in touch. And all that remains for me to do is really wish everyone a great afternoon. So thanks and bye-bye.